Hello, friends. Welcome, and thank you for listening in to this session. Thank you for joining. Before we get going, though, let's just take a few seconds to arrive and to center ourselves and be present to take in what is on offer. Yeah. We will do this by taking 3 deep breaths, simple 3 deep breaths. You can do it with me, or you can take your own time and do it. But breathe in through your nose, big intake, and exhale through your mouth. So, number one. And again. And finally. Wonderful. It's always a wonderful feeling to truly breathe and to be present. So, welcome again to our session on the process to solving anything. On this session, we will talk about the art of co-creation. We'll talk about what that means. We'll dissect the word. We'll dissect what is inside co-creation. We'll look at some neuroscience behind why it works, with a solution-focused lens on this. And this is important because the neuroscience aspect that we'll touch on today is, again, just a tip of that iceberg. There's a lot of indicators and contributors into why this works. But I want to talk about this one part, small part, but it's the tip of the iceberg. It is important to really look at that as well. So we will look at the solution focused lens, because what we do within co-creation, what this enables us to do is it enables us to create new possibilities, right? And professional coaches do this. They use this with their clients, their teams, the organizations, to gain clarity, awareness, and most importantly, really tap into insights that enables them to create new futures, right? And that's the solution aspect, the solution focus aspect. So we will look at all of that, and break it down into small components. And then I will share with you a method, the process, right, that you can use with your team, your clients, your organization, to really get into the art of co-creation. Let's dive in. Before we get stuck in, let's get into what is co-creation. We will then break down what is partnership and how these two are key to the success of most things. Partnership, co-creation, you see how it's kind of interlinked and intertwined. Even the ICF coaching core competencies has these a lot mentioned and referenced in those. We will also look at the psychological power that they both wield. And I'll share with you the method, as I've mentioned, that we've created at Oak Agility, that you can use time and again, really, to recenter yourself and to bring your awareness, your systems awareness, your clients' awareness, into more of a focus onto partnership and co-creation. Let's start with co-creation, because partnership, like I said, I believe it's a core component of co-creation. And I see this really as an integral essence of co-creation. So what is co-creation? Co-creation is when different parties work together to produce a mutually valuable outcome. Mutually valuable outcome is the key point here. If co-creation is done right, and set up correctly, meaning there is heart, there is shared purpose, there is care, there is shared ownership, there is safety, there is trust, and with an emphasis of everything about the whole rather than just the parts. That for me is where that mutually valuable outcome can generate from. With the right conditions, with the right environments that you create, as I said, where you have heart, you have a shared purpose, shared ownership, safety, and trust, right? That stems and starts to breed the ingredients of having co-creation as an art of designing new possibilities, creating new insights, creating new awareness, where every single person in that system, in that team, in that group is mutually benefiting from the outcome. And everyone is finding it mutually valuable. One might say, okay, how is this different from collaboration? And for me, I think collaboration, for me, I find it single-threaded. What do I mean by that? I think it very often, maybe in the very few situations where I've felt actually this has moved from a collaboration or a collaborative thing to more of a co-creation thing. Um, when it's been in that collaboration stance, I think it's for me felt like it's part of the whole very often than not, right? I don't, I will not generalize, but I don't find it mutually owned, right? You tend to have a party who needs inputs and actions done by other parties to arrive at an outcome. And I think this piece here, for me, makes collaboration too transactional. Um, okay, let's park that. We'll come to it. We'll come to a bit more of it. So let's now look at partnership. Um, and a better way to dissect partnership, actually, is to start with the word partner. The word partner, not sure if you knew this, I'm sure some of you do. The word partner originates from Anglo-Norman French of the word passina, which also means joint heir. Now, let's take it a bit further. Let's look at heir, right? Because language is very important. Now, what does heir means? An heir means a person who is legally entitled to something. So when we say partner has the connotation of joint heir, and we're talking about co-creation and partnership being a core essence of co-creation, and we talk about co-creation having a mutually valuable outcome for those involved in co-creation, you can start to see a thread here of how the shared ownership point, collective ownership, collective drive, joint heir, right? Everyone in this space of co-creation owns it and has real key part to play in this. It's not a transactional, okay, you have something to deliver or some outcome to deliver. I'm here to do parts and collaborate with you and help you move along. This is all in. Co-creation for me is all in, and we're gonna look more about that. Right? This really puts a lot of meaning into the word partnership. Right? And it comes back to, again, like I said, mutual care, shared ownership, shared purpose, part. ICF defines coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. Joint heir, partnering. We can replace that partnering with the ICF defines coaching as a joint airship, if that's the word, if I may use it, with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. With that, the perspectives kind of changes a little bit, including even how we show up as coaches. And by the way, the ICF is International Coach Federation, for those that are not aware, the governing body that certifies, one of the governing bodies that certifies professional coaches. So why is it important to really understand the similarities here? For me, I believe it is important because co-creation is not fully appreciated as a super important psychological trigger to create new possibilities when it comes to solving some of our big, hairy problem statements, challenges, or anything for that matter, right? By looking at anything in front of you as an opportunity to partner with someone or to co-create solutions, you psychologically tell your neocortex frontal lobe, we'll talk about some of that, I'm throwing some big words out here, you tell yourself, right, no stress. We are about to combine mind power here, right, with other powerful minds to create new possibilities. If you think about it that way, it's quite relieving when you think. You don't really put all the onerous, all the stress, all the, what is the word? All the anxiety on yourself to be the person that provides all the answers and the person that provides all the solutions. So why don't we all do this all the time, every time, then, one might ask? Well, as we all know, the human being is a very complex creature. But for this session, I'll speak about one of the key influences or drivers, you might call it, as to why we don't all do this by default all the time. By that, I mean, why don't we all step into a co-creative stance? Why don't we all just naturally embark on a co-creation rather than other things that we do, right? So let's dig in. So let me take you through our three brain systems. So we have the reptilian brain. Most of you know it. Fight, flight, freeze. You've heard this many times. So this is the brain that responds to threats. We have our survival mode is here, right? Self-preservation. We also have our habit systems, which lives here, right? And it's not quite a lot of thinking that goes on in the reptilian brain. It's instinctive, just wants to act. This is our kinesthetic brain, action. Just run, fight, freeze, survive. Very, very simple. Then we have our limbic brain, and this is the brain that really has the emotion, so belonging, sense of belonging, connection, right? When we have connection, we feel part of a system, part of a team, part of a group, feeling part of, feeling a connection or connected to something. This is the part of the brain that really holds and caters for nurturing. It is also the bit that does the protection of the group. You have to start to build a protective mindset of a group. The limbic brain does that. Again, we've mentioned emotions. It's very much in this space. This part of the brain can also modulate the past and the present. It is past and present oriented, and it has a binary thing to it. So either or, black, white, true, false. It's very binary in terms of the limbic brain, what it does there, what it processes. It is our evaluative part of the brain. This is where we make most of our evaluations and we process a lot of our evaluations. This is the bit that handles that, processes it. Very hierarchical. It likes, get this, sameness as well. So things to remain the same. It really connects very, if we actually imagine this being the brain The bottom bit here being the reptilian brain, right? Connects to our backbone and all our nervous systems. This is it. That's the reptilian brain. The bit that sits right onto the reptilian brain is the limbic brain. So that element of sameness living in the limbic brain, because it doesn't like change, as we know, a lot of people don't like change. It connects very swiftly to the reptilian brain, and that's why when there is an introduction of a change, it sees it as a threat, and that's why the fight, flight, freeze kicks in as well. There's because of that very direct link, sitting on top of it really. So sameness, when we talk about sameness, it is that it lives here. It likes to maintain and preserve that. And this one here, in terms of sensory, this is the auditory sense. All lives here. Emotions, hearing, feeling. Okay. We then talk about the neurofrontal cortex. This is the big one that sits in our frontal lobe here. And this is the creative brain. This is the part of the brain that is capable of constructing new possibilities, new futures. It can conceive of a future, right, through visualization. It has the power to create new futures. It is very much a future-oriented part of our brain. It cannot conceive the past. It cannot conceive the present. It's all about the future. We have options here. The neurofrontal cortex has the capability to create options. We talk about range, having a number of ideas, a number of options to choose from, and narrow down and sift, and just being creative, being when we talk about brainstorming, I know sometimes it's not a best word or great word to use. Brainstorming is literally just storming, and you just putting things out there, having options and creating range of ideas. You can have a lot of insights and awareness can just emerge from here as well. It does have a higher levels of engagement and motive also. That bit lives here. If we cannot tap into our neurofrontal cortex and we want to have higher levels of engagement in things we do, if you don't tap into it, then it's very hard. It's very hard because, as you recall, the limbic brain likes sameness. So if you don't already have high levels of engagement in your system and you want to introduce that, you really need to try and figure out how you tap into that part of the brain, the frontal cortex. Otherwise, you are up against the mountain. This bit here again, also the neurofrontal cortex, is where we like to tap into for resourcefulness, right? In the visualization side of things, in the projection of a future. As you see, you notice me looking up, right? When you want to project and visualize and really tap into the neurofrontal cortex by habits, behavior, movement, somatic movements, looking head up somehow. I'm sure there's a scientific reason there. If you want to try it, actually, it's quite, there is a sense of clarity, right? When you look up and when you want to start projecting and visualize something, you start to have a sense of clarity. And by the notion of looking up, you open up some airways and waves to really access your neurofrontal cortex. Imagine trying to just create some ideas and visualize something. You can simulate it, right? You can try and just look down and try and just think about creating some ideas. You might find it quite hard. And the minute you step up, sit up or stand up and look up or whatever way, the minute your head is a little bit up. I'm not saying that's the only way to access your neurofrontal cortex, but for me, it helps me access my visual thinking brain. Right. So why am I sharing all of this? This access, or the three brain systems that I've talked about here, and most of you will be familiar with this. Personally, the neofrontal cortex and the limbic brain and the reptilian brain, they have a connection to whether you are able to tap into a co-creative side of your system or your team, your environment. It has a huge part to play here, right? Being aware of these elements of our brain system helps a great deal to start to make headway into creating and enabling the environment that promotes, thrives, holds, cultivates, breeds co-creation. Through practice, through coaching, through training, through awareness, through meditation, right? We can become more aware, more present, more tuned to all of these things, all of these signals, all of these indicators showing up for us, and then we can act on it, right? The beauty of having awareness is so that you can do something with it, which is great. So co-creation and partnership really, me, taps into the neocortex, neofrontal cortex of our brain, and it accesses the creativity, the ideas, the insights, the higher levels of engagement that you want, the ability to create or to construct new possibilities, and also to amend possibilities that we want to shape, right? And being resourceful, that resourcefulness sits here. Yeah. Why is this important? Why have I chosen to talk about this? Again, I would like to reiterate that this part, or this one bit of the three brain systems, that I believe contributes and really supports and enables one to create an environment that is conducive to support and promote and thrive for co-creation. Is one aspect, is one tip of the iceberg. I mentioned our belief systems, where we have grown. Again, belief systems sits in our brain, influences from external influences, where we were brought up, our culture, our community, our society, family, everything. There's lots of things here at play. I just wanted to focus on the three brain systems and draw that connection piece into co-creation when you want to do that. Why am I sharing this with you? Why am I talking about the three brain systems, the reptilian brain, limbic brain, and the neofrontal cortex, and what they bring for us and what they do for us as human beings? It's essentially because the process I'm about to share with you next builds on all of these factors, right, of the three brain system. The essence of co-creation and partnership that we've been discussing so far, right? Remember, partnership, joint air, co-creation, mutually valuable outcome, right? All that piece coming together and being able to tap into ideas, insights, awareness, creativity, resourcefulness with the neofrontal cortex. So I have used this personally, and within Oak Agility, we've used this to co-create with agile teams, with our leaders, groups, used it at home with family, practically anything you can think of, right? Anything in front of you, you can position yourself and navigate this conversation using this process and this method a great deal. So this is the starting point of Hook. We start at the base. We start with really the key question of putting everything on the table and making it as open, as inviting, as care, as thoughtful, as heart involved as possible, right? And we start this off by asking the question of what do you want, right? This is the premise of most coaching conversations, and we leverage this massively because in that mutually valuable outcome, in that partnering, which is joint air, we have heart, and we bring that heart, we bring that safety, we bring that care, we bring that intimacy into every single co-creation conversation. And what do you want is the premise of, okay, what outcomes do we want to achieve here? What is it on your mind, or what is it that we need to get into here? And then we can set ourselves up with our prefrontal cortex, neofrontal cortex, and get into insights, ideas, awareness, and everything else. We also want to solidify and validate that whatever it is that we want to talk about here is important, and it's important for all involved, right? So we ask the question, why is this important? And you may find better ways of asking a why question, given the situation or the circumstances that you're using this and facilitating this, or whichever way. You may want to ask it differently, but the essence of this is confirming and validating the importance of whatever it is that you want to co-create on, right? Because you don't want to waste each other's time on working on something that is not valuable, right? Not mutually valuable, benefiting each other, even if you are supporting, providing the space, creating the environment for everyone involved to benefit from. This then moves on to, so who is it that is benefiting here? Who is it that is benefiting from what it is that we're talking about? Yeah, could be self could be everyone in that session or in that group or in that team in the organization. Could be customers and customers, could be stakeholders, it could be the universe, it could be the world, it could be very broad. But asking that question, who benefits, is very important because then it solidifies the intent of what we are intending to do and what we're talking about and why is it important, but also who is the beneficiary of this, right? It helps us really make and establish those connections and the relationships here and helps us with that focus, tapping into our resourcefulness as well. Who are we becoming, or who am I becoming in this? Whatever it is that we're talking about, whatever is the change, that is some of the questions that we might ask, is who am I becoming in this? Again, don't forget, we are looking at solution focused, so we make it future perspective. Future perspective, we're creating new possibilities, we're creating new futures, right? So who am I becoming, or who are we becoming, or who is the beneficiaries becoming as a result of whatever it is that we're talking about and we're co-creating on to deliver whatever it is that it is needed to do to deliver. What this does, the what do you want, why is it important, who benefits, who am I becoming? What these circles around is vision, our identity of who we are and who we're becoming, and our values. We can tap into the value systems, which again, remember, the value systems connect to the limbic brain side of things. It sits there, we can tap back and forth. But who we're becoming, future perspective, is neurofrontal cortex, creating new possibilities, and who benefits is all around expanding our insights, expanding our awareness, and tapping into the neurofrontal cortex piece, right? And that's very important because when we set ourselves up in that sense, then we tap into the creativity, we tap into that essence of generating insights, generating ideas, tapping into resourcefulness. And that's where we go. So from here, we go on to how. So how will we achieve this? Or how will you achieve it? We're looking at capabilities. We're looking at, again, the resourcefulness of what is needed in order for us to achieve what we want, and essentially having discussed the benefits of who benefits from this. So we're following that trajectory and discussing how do we achieve this. And again, we need to tap into our resourcefulness from our neofrontal cortex, and having the conditions that supports and enables this is very important to support and enable co-creation and partnership. We can then also follow on from that in terms of how would we achieve it. We talk about timelines or time boxes. So when do we need to do it by? When do we need it? When we will do it? When will we do it? Right? All the questions around time we can ask. If we're going to do it, which of these what's and how it's broken down and who benefits, potentially maybe some different things benefits others. When will we start doing those? And again, there is that connection and that synchronicity. When that environment is created, it can really go into a bit more and have more intent and more awareness, more connection. I come back to the word care and heart, right? For what you are building and what you are doing and what you are mutually valuable outcome that you are building and you're developing, right? So that's very important. We can have that. And then finally, we go on to the outcomes. We're classifying that as outcomes because it is things that we need to see, things, behaviors, outcomes, things we want to see. How would we know that we've got what we said we want? And also because we've validated and we've had conversations, we've discussed in depth collectively also why it's important if you are talking to a group or a team or leaders in that sense. The outcomes for us on that hooked model comes last. Because many a times I've seen the inverse of starting with outcomes. Sometimes people don't know. It's hard, right? You don't know what you want and why you want it. So sometimes it's very hard to define the outcomes you want from the beginning. So I've seen this flipped, starting from the outcomes out, and it's hard. So we have been working with this. We have been trying this and experimenting this, and it's shown more better results for us in the systems we operate in because of this curve and this narrative. And again, having all of these components around always starts with what you want and why is important and who benefits. That is no compromise. How and when you can navigate those conversations in terms of how you want to do it, leading to the outcomes, the other how. So how would we know we got it? This allows you to be able to really tap into the resourcefulness and the levels of engagement. So as we said, in order for us to create the conditions that cultivates co-creation, we need to look at some of these things, and this is not the exhaustive list. Build relationships. Relationships is very key. The system that you're operating in, even if it's a one-to-one coaching conversation with someone, relationship is key, right? You need to have that connection and that establishment between you and the partner, you and the person or the group or the people that you're working with. That system, focus on relationships. You have to cultivate a trust and safety environment. Again, trust will mean very different things to different people. So you need to understand what that means for you and the partner or the system you're in, and what safety means in that system for you as well. Maintain presence. And what do we mean by that? Maintaining presence either through meditation, active listening, demonstrating curiosity. Really be intentful about that and be curious about what's going on and what's emerging, what's transpiring. Be comfortable also with not knowing, right? Being in that space of not knowing or not having all the answers, because again, if you recall at the beginning, we spoke about that mutually valuable outcome and partnering as joint heirs, co-owners, shared ownership, shared purpose with other minds, other brain systems, other intelligence, collective intelligence. That takes the onerous off from us, from having this anxiety and this pressure of being the people or the person with all the answers, right? Be comfortable with not knowing. That really will help your presence, being able to listen, or levels of listening, and be there, right? Empathy, big, bring heart into all things. Be observant, and look at again the presencing. For some of you that know Theory U, I'll talk about that a bit. Theory U by Otto Schama and co. The presencing, which is the bottom of the U, essentially, has a lot of great things in there that really allows us and helps us to be present. Aim to figure out what that means for you to be able to tap into your neocortex more. and also how you need to tap into your system's neocortex a bit more. But using the hooked method, the approach, again, it's entirely up to you. It facilitates a conversation. It's a process that you can hold mentally. It's a mental model you can use to hold a conversation, navigate a conversation path, to have clarity for those involved. So in summary, yes, we're here. We are at the end. Using the hooked method to facilitate co-creative conversations or sessions or whatever it might be for you in your environment, in your system, to help partner with everyone involved with heart, with presence, with safety, with trust, with relationship or in relationship with each other, right? To be able to create mutually valuable outcomes as joint heirs. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to your questions.